Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG Public Media, TV, radio, online. News that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Thank you for joining us for Newsmakers. I'm Casey Counts. When Mayor Ken Miyagishima's term ends at the end of this year, he will have spent over 16 years in office. He's already Las Cruces' longest-serving mayor, and he announced in November that he will not seek re-election. Mayor Miyagishima joins us today to discuss his tenure, the challenges and accomplishments, and what he hopes to accomplish in his final year in office. First, KRWG Public Media multimedia journalist Johnny Coker spoke with the mayor and others about his legacy.
Mayor Ken Miyagishima is going into his 16th year as mayor of Las Cruces. He was elected into office in 2007 after serving 6 years as a city councilor for the city's 6th district. He is the longest-serving mayor in the history of the city, and last December, he announced that he would not run for re-election. Miyagishima said that he'll miss the camaraderie that comes with being a public servant and being able to help make decisions for the growth of the city. But ultimately, he feels that it's time to step down.
I'm sure I'll still participate somehow, maybe as they may want to call on me for something. But nonetheless, after I leave, I pretty much need to stay out of it. I mean, let someone else take over for that. I'm slowly trying to transition myself now, for that time when that time comes, because that'll be, 30 years in public office. It's kind of a jolt.
Sharon Thomas served with Miyagishima as District 6 councilor from 2007 to 2013. She said that the evolution of the city and its amenities were greatly helped by Miyagishima's leadership.
Well, I think he really marshaled this city from being a kind of a big, small town into becoming a small city. And it wasn't just us on the council. He got more involved with the National Mayors Association and what's going on across the country. It was a big learning period, and everybody was excited and interested to do that. I think we're really lucky to have had him as the mayor for such a long period of time, and he adjusted and rode the waves and, marshaled us through high times and low times, and I think that's pretty rare to find somebody who can be a mayor that long and go through that many changes and in direction in the city and all the growth of the city. And so I think his steadiness made a huge difference for where our city is now.
Gil Sorg was elected as Las Cruces City Councilor representing District 5 in 2008. He said that he always appreciated the way that the mayor handled himself when talking with members of the public, and is also proud to have been part of a city government that encourages the importance of education.
He's been a good face for the city wherever he goes. People are going to appreciate what he's done in office and so forth. The best thing for people to rise up in their economy, their economic situation, is to get a better education. So it's not the first the responsibility of the city government to do that, but we do encourage that wherever we can.
Miyagishima said that in terms of his legacy, he would like to be remembered for his emphasis on education and for his visits to talk to young people about the importance of staying in school.
Like I tell them, I immediately start off telling these third graders that they're our future doctors, scientists, police officers, firefighters, teachers, and I need them to stay in school. That's something there that I hope that they'll know that I put a lot of emphasis on our children's education, because even though I'm not on the school board, everything evolves around our future leaders, our future workers, employers, and things of this nature that they're eventually going to be.
While he's still working to deal with the city's contemporary issues such as crime and immigration, Miyagishima says he's also working to make his transition out of office smooth for his successor. For KRWG Public Media, I'm Johnny Coker.
We'll have a chance to expand on a lot of what we just saw, but now let me welcome Las Cruces Mayor Ken Miyagishima to the KRWG Public Media Studios. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. How about you?
Good, good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And it's going to be your last year in office. You announced in November that you would not seek re-election. I'd like to start back at the beginning and talk a little bit about your inspiration for running for office in the first place.
Oh gosh, that goes way back to President Nixon. So I was just a kid. I still remember I was in my bedroom and I heard my older brother, second oldest brother, tell my parents that he wanted to go to Vietnam. And so of course I didn't want my brother to go there and get hurt, but he was committed to go, and one thing leads to another. There was a commercial that to re-elect President Nixon, and he would stop the war. So I remember telling my dad, well, we need to campaign for President Nixon so Jim doesn't get hurt. And fortunately, he didn't end up going. He ended up, they sent him to Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center in Denver, Colorado. And
do you think his desire to serve had anything to do with your dad's service?
Oh, absolutely, sure. That coming from a military family, I was the only one that didn't serve. I still haven't remembered this conversation with my brothers. I just told them I wanted to be a businessman, and I appreciate their service, but it was kind of the direction I wanted to go.
There's a lot of pictures of you and your dad because you were with him a lot, he was with you a lot, and I noticed that in many of them he's wearing a button about reading.
Oh yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Kids who read succeed. He loved to do that. I mean, that was something there that, my dad was born in the United States, born in California, but he was interned in an internment camp during World War II, and so he was taken out in 5th grade. And then when he was released at 16 years old, he didn't have he had to go, he wanted to join the military, and they had to have a GED, so he studied up and passed his GED and joined. But I think, and then he later went on to get his 4-year degree here in New Mexico State, 1973. And so I guess that's always been something, us growing up, we knew that education was important, and he didn't make me do this during the summer, but I know my older brothers, he made them read and do book reports during the summer on their break.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, when it came time to decide to run for Las Cruces mayor, what was it that you had in mind that you would bring to the table?
Well, one of the things that really sticks out was at that time there was this developer who had 5 different subdivisions going on, and they weren't completed, and there were a lot of services that weren't available. In fact, one didn't really even have the necessary amenities such as water. I mean, just things weren't really ready to roll. And it just seemed like the Las Cruces City Council back then was just approving subdivisions and annexations, and I wasn't for that. And that really led me to run for mayor in '07.
Would you say that was one of your biggest immediate challenges when you got into office?
Oh, absolutely. I still remember when I voted no for this 2,000 acre annexation, which is now Metro Verde. And I still remember the reporter coming in, and I thought to myself, this is the beginning of, I know this is going to be brought up during a mayoral campaign. Why was I the only one who voted against it? Yeah.
And how did you get everyone on board for the desire that you had for how Las Cruces should grow?
That took a while. So because on that vote was 6-1, I was the only one who voted against it, and then I won in '07. And then I was joined with Councilor Nathan Small, Councilor Miguel Silva, and myself. And then when I vacated my seat, Sherry Thomas came on board. So that gave us 4 votes right there. And so that's when we started looking at different things that we could do that would really help Las Cruces move forward when there was development. And I think it lends itself great right now. We're full steam ahead. It's just constantly growing, and we have the necessary infrastructure for that growth.
Now, you're a businessman. And we have heard from different sectors of the business community that Las Cruces is not a business-friendly town. Do you agree with that?
No. However, there are challenges that we need to fix. We have a great director in Larry Nichols there at Community Development. But once in a while, you might have some people, I'll just say namely inspectors and some other middle management that might be a little bit too tough on some of the people who are trying to get their permits. And so, needless to say, sometimes council members or myself will contact the city manager, who in turn contacts Larry, and he smooths it out. In fact, they hired a business concierge, Donald Bustos, to help with that situation. So things have gotten better. I haven't gotten as many complaints as I used to after they put on the business concierge, but nonetheless, we can do better at that.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about how Las Cruces has changed since you became mayor the first time in the last 16 years.
Well, you know, again, I can't give myself credit. I mean, I'll have the vision, but I ultimately have to have my council members' support, and so I'm fortunate for that. So it's really been a team effort to really lead Las Cruces in the direction. You know, we've been fortunate. We've been named the best run city in New Mexico 6 years in a row. We've made the top 10 best run cities in the United States 5 years in a row. So that just lends itself to the management team at the city and my colleagues for, you know, not overspending, but spending, I think, just the right amount so that we have the right services with the money that comes in.
Now, if you have to be on the spot to identify something as one of your biggest accomplishments, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. One of the things that I really set out to in 2008, about a year after I took over as mayor, was there was an article about childhood diabetes and education. And so fortunately the Secretary of Education from the state asked me to work on this program. And so we were able to implement it throughout all the elementary schools in Las Cruces. There's some 20 of them. And so I would spend my time about every week, maybe 1 or 2 days out of the week, going to visit the third graders, all of them, every year. And the goal was to, one, get them to stay in school, make a commitment to me, and the second one was to do what they call the 5-2-1-0, 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, no more than 2 hours of watching screen time, 1 hour exercise, and 0 sodas, because I didn't want, you know, I wanted to make sure that was in place.
Did you also assign them book reports to do over the
No,
summer?
no book reports. But so in 2018, with combination with a lot of the other things that was going on in the community, that was the first year, because we started when they were third graders, that was the first year that they graduated. Our graduation rate was the #1 in the state. And it was great to see that. And again, there was really a team effort, because I know there were some other items that were going on in the city. And subsequently, we've been #1 ever since after that year. Lately, they haven't come up with what Las Cruces has done. As far as the fitness and nutrition, that I couldn't tell. But I would like to think that it's helped as well.
Well, it certainly has been a rough period of years for educators, you know, trying to pivot through the pandemic and trying to return to life as it once was, or at least some semblance of normalcy. So I know there's still probably a long way to go there. One of the things that was new with the last election, your last win, was ranked choice voting. And I think, you know, it's always hard for people to really grasp the concept when it's brand new like that going into it. And so as a result, you do have questions. Do you feel that ranked choice voting gives an incumbent an automatic advantage?
Gives the incumbent? I wouldn't say that would be an automatic advantage. I will say that, you know, at first I was really a little concerned with it. You know, I kind of researched it as much as I could, understood how it worked, and the mechanism behind it actually makes sense. So let's take this last election, for example. You know, I had beaten former Mayor Matisse in 2007, and I knew he would be probably the one to beat in 2019. I also thought that prior to ranked choice voting, that if I had a runoff, our internal numbers showed us winning by about 10%. So lo and behold, when ranked choice voting went in and he emerged as second place, was at the final end, we won by 10%.
Obviously, not having that runoff is seen as one of the advantages of ranked choice voting. Can you crystallize, what that means? The advantage to voters to not have to go through the runoff process?
Well, really, it's to the taxpayer because it costs extra money to have the election. Right now, the city, we're lucky if we have 25% turnout, maybe 20 to 25%. You have a runoff, you're lucky if you're going to get 5 or 10%. But the cost is still the same. You still have to have the polls open, the poll workers, everything is all the same. And so the cost per citizen voting is obviously higher for a runoff than it is a regular election. So basically, in a nutshell, it saves the taxpayer maybe $50,000 to $75,000 a year, which is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah. I want to move on to crime. Recently, we were questioning whether it was a perception or reality in terms of the numbers as we watched what felt like an increase in crime. And I think now we can confirm that that's the case. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on what is behind that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I was listening to the chief this morning. We had a meeting and he was going over some of the statistics, and they are up. And what I'm going to tell you is we're not the only city. I was reading an article in the Wall Street Journal, or excuse me, the New York Times, of some small towns in Arkansas that, 1,500 population, 3,000 population, that are experiencing things that they've never experienced. And I know that's what some of our residents are probably saying. We've never seen this before. And this is happening throughout the United States. I don't have the answers to why it's happening. I can only speculate. But I have to tell you that based on what our funding is, based on the number of police officers that we have on the street, I think the Las Cruces Police Department and the Doña Ana County Sheriff's Department does the best job in the state that they can.
This is a great opportunity to move on to the idea of a citizen police oversight committee. Obviously, there have been some high-profile cases that cause great concern in the community, and there is a push to have a citizen oversight committee. And you have been against that from the start, if I'm not mistaken. Why don't you think that's a good idea? Well,
a couple reasons. One, we're one of the first cities to have a professional outside organization that kind of peeks into how the city police department is run. They get to review any of the situations or internal audit reviews as needed, or if council needs them to look at a particular item, they will. These people are professionals. They're not from Las Cruces. The first one that we had, interestingly, the first one that we had was called PERF, and they actually had retired police chiefs who subsequently received their master's or PhD, and I thought they did a great job. Our latest one has 0 law enforcement, but they do have many of them highly educated. So. And they come from, believe it or not, there were some that were on a citizens review board there in the city of Los Angeles. There are some who were actually from the ACLU. They were made up of, if I could use the term, a dream team of non-governmental organization people. This is it, and you have this. That's what they do. They're highly trained in this. I think to allow the citizens. I'm looking at it from a liability standpoint, because, for example, what if, hypothetically, the district attorney, let's say there's a shooting, district attorney, and there's a special committee that reviews this, and they say, okay, this was justified, and then the Citizens Review Board looks at it and says, no, it wasn't justified. Well, of course, they don't have the wherewithal that the first committee has, but that's almost like double jeopardy in a way. And in the United States, there is no double jeopardy. And so what I'm trying to get at is, this is a very difficult situation. I'm sure that a lot of times people think, well, that officer shot that person. But they also, besides the family that hurt and obviously the individual, but the officer too, I can't imagine how they feel after what they had to do. So, yeah, you're right. I don't support it. I think a lot of it is from the liability standpoint. What happens if the person decides to sue those committee members, the city is not allowed, because of the anti-donation clause, to pay for any legal expense. So the residents then would have to bear those costs on their own. And I don't think they'd be very happy about that. So there's just a lot of things that it sounds good, but I think that what we have in place works as well, if not better.
You have spoken very highly of the city's efforts to combat homelessness in the community. How do you think those efforts are looking today, and what do you see as the most needed policies moving forward?
You know, Nicole Martinez and her team does the best job that they can with the resources that we provide. You know, her and her team have a great big heart, and they want to help as much as we can. I think the best is to add to the campus of where they're at off of Amador, and build more studio apartments, things of this nature, so that they can have their staff, maybe if they choose to live there, free of rent, but then have their clients there available for their to be able to meet their needs. I think that's the model. I think a lot of times when you put them in different places throughout the city, it's difficult because, you know, it's like anything else. They got to go over to this place here, or they got to go to this place here, and they can only spend so much time. Whereas if they're more concentrated in one area, that would be my druthers, is to see that happen in that.
On that note, the City Council just recently voted unanimously to install hygiene stations throughout the city. I don't know if there's been a timeline or a cost associated with this pilot program established just yet. But how do you think that hygiene stations will help what some of the symptoms are that people are seeing in their businesses and around their homes?
Yeah, so what was passed was a resolution for staff to begin the process to see how to bring this forward. There's been some in other cities, NGOs or non-governmental agencies who operate these hygiene stations. So for example, if ABC Inc. wants to operate it, they would be in charge of it. And so basically what these hygiene stations would be for our residents, the residents that are homeless that don't have access to it right away, whether it's restrooms, washing facilities, maybe even portable showers. So they would be able to at least have that opportunity to bathe themselves. And you never know, some may need it just to get a job opportunity to do a job interview or something of that nature. So I think these are needed. I think that they would be placed strategically in the city, and I think would be welcomed.
Well, we don't have much time left, and I want to be sure that we get to your goals for your last year in office.
Oh my goodness, okay, time already flew. So one of the things that I wanted to see us, hopefully, I know we won't complete it, but one of the biggest things was the land that we acquired across the street from Mountain View Regional Hospital. That was land that we got from the city of Albuquerque for really a very small amount. And so that's going to be used to really not only clean up that area that was the city's landfill back in the 60s and 70s. In fact, I learned how to drive out there. But more importantly, to really beautify that area and turn it into an income-producing piece of property for all of our residents to enjoy. So that's the first one.
I hate it when that happens, when the place you learned to drive is now a super shopping center.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, what's next for you?
The second one was the Amador Proximo. I had some other ideas for that. State beat me to the punch, and they're putting a movie production place there, so that's great. You know, I just wanted to revamp that area. The third one was the corridor between New Mexico State and our downtown. That one's going to probably have to be put on hold a little bit, but I'm confident that my colleagues will get that through later.
All right, and what's next for you after you are done serving as Las Cruces mayor?
Well, I've been putting off a couple knee surgeries for a while, and so I probably want to do that. Maybe learn Spanish, drop about 20 or 30 pounds, a few things like that.
Well, you're now a professor, right?
Well, yes, yeah, I am actually.
How have you found stepping into the classroom?
Well, I used to do that years ago. So, but it's different with today's students. In fact, I would ask my sons who are graduating, but of near the same age, I said, so do students not really talk that much? They go, oh, no, they don't. They just, okay. But I told them, hey, if you guys are ever on a Zoom, make sure your camera's on, because I can tell you that it's kind of irritating when the camera's off. So.
And what are you teaching?
Personal finance.
Now, you just recently got your master's degree, right?
Right, in 2021, during COVID.
Yeah.
When it shut down, I'd been eyeing this program for 3 or 4 years at UTEP. Okay, and then when COVID went through or shut down, I figured that I would figure that they were going to do it, via Zoom, and sure enough, they did, and there you go.
Now, I don't know how you got away with going to UTEP.
Well, because New Mexico State didn't have the MBA online that I wanted, and so I think they're going to have it now. But it was.
They don't want to see any more Las Cruces mayors going to get their
exactly.
masters at UTEP.
Right.
Well, Mayor Ken Miyagishima, thank you so much for sitting down and spending this time with us today.
Absolutely.
And best of luck on those goals for your last year in office.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations for being Las Cruces' longest serving mayor. I think you have to go back to the early 1900s to find someone with that kind of tenure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, that's our time for now. Join us this week on KRWG Radio. Every weekday, it's Morning Edition from 5 to 9, Fresh Air at 11, followed by Here and Now from noon to 2, and All Things Considered from 4 to 7. KRWG News is always online at krwg.org, and we'd like to hear from you. Email us with story ideas and video submissions. The address is feedback@nmsu.edu. For all of us at KRWG News, I'm Casey Counts. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time on Newsmakers.